Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Corinth. Today we're going to be talking about something very exciting, that is the Commons at Agora. It's one of our largest projects that we've had in Corinth, maybe ever, and should spur on and will spur on the largest economic development push in Corinth's history. And today I've got George Marshall with me. Welcome, George.
Thank you. It's glad to be here.
Commons at Agora is kind of the nucleus of our big economic development push. And the reason that I wanted to have you here today with us is to discuss some of the things that we thought would make Corinth unique as a proposition for investment into our economic development zone, but things that we've learned not only as council people and staff that have lived in Corinth, some of us for 20 plus years, but through many open discussions with our community throughout this process and throughout updating our comp plan. We've probably had 100 to 200, maybe more citizens involved in the input in things that we would like to see here in Corinth. And a lot of them were, what's the biggest vision you could cast for Corinth? And resoundingly, it was, we need a city center, probably should be located someplace close to City Hall. And we want a place to gather, and we want a place that we can eat at restaurants and maybe do some shopping. And all of those were great because that's exactly what we wanted, but we immediately ran into a few challenges that we had to overcome. One of those being the streets and the flooding in that area. So George, you want to give us a quick rundown on some of those challenges that we had?
Yeah. So, when you look at the configuration of the area around City Hall, you have Corinth Parkway that runs east-west. You have North Corinth Street that connects over to I-35, and you have a weird intersection there at Walton. Those are really challenging to try to tie the city together. From my talkings with other folks that have lived in Corinth over the years, apparently there was a discussion years ago about realigning North Corinth Street before. And so in talking with some of those landowners trying to acquire right-of-way and so forth, it's good to hear that now we're actually looking to do something about
Sure.
those challenges. When we talk about economic drivers and trying to build that infrastructure, have places for buildings, we need detention ponds, right? And we now have new flood maps like that I mentioned earlier.
FEMA blessed us with some new flood maps.
Oh my gosh, didn't they? It was wonderful. Yeah, they took the land that wasn't in the floodplain across the street from City Hall and now put it in the floodplain.
Right.
And so now we have to go through the letter of map correction process through FEMA to address that. But during that process, the city has land behind City Hall that we have evaluated whether or not we need to build detention ponds there. In working with Jones Carter, I like to call them our all things Lynchburg Creek engineering firm, they have actually determined that we don't need to do anything downstream of Corinth Parkway in order to be able to maximize the developable land north of Corinth Parkway. So when we look at the land across from City Hall, we have the open space that's there through the trees. We also have a detention pond over by the hospital. And looking further across the street at Walton Drive, you have a large detention pond that is now on city-owned land. The city purchased from NCTC. Those are all great places to build buildings or other kinds of infrastructure to stimulate that growth and have things happen. Our engineer has determined that all of those detention ponds aren't necessary and that we don't need to go rip down a bunch of trees behind City Hall, that we can do things and make it work and not flood people downstream from us, which is really helpful. For a while we were talking about building basically earthen berms across the creek, which would take out large amount of trees, and it would then be a long-term maintenance item for the city to deal with. But not having to do that is going to save us money now, but also money in the future.
So not only is this a catalyst for our economic development push that we've been focused on now for about 5-6 years in earnest. It has also provided an opportunity for us to solve some flooding issues. It'll pull 70 or more homes out of the floodplain that are currently in the floodplain through the FEMA grant that we were able to obtain after about 2 years worth of effort. It's allowed us to fix a lot of that. I mean, for the lack of a better word, it's a bit of a bird's nest over there. And as somebody that rides his bicycle up and down that trail often, that is an odd spot. And every time I ride through there, I think, how is this ever going to develop? I mean, you've got 3 roads that just kind of intersect at 2 rail crossings, and there's like weird little parcels. And so we've solved all of those issues. And we're moving towards a place to gather. So one of our biggest, how long have you been here in Corinth?
Just
George?
a little over 3 years.
Just a little over 3 years. So you've probably obviously been here long enough to understand that Corinth has challenges that other cities don't. The first is we've got a huge highway that intersects or that bisects the city. And so we've got an east and a west side of Corinth, which makes unity difficult. We have 2 school districts, so it's not like Corinth can even get behind one mascot, if you will, at the local school district. And aside from that, and a country club, there's really nothing else that we have to gather around. And that was also a challenge that the developers shared with us. There's really nothing that attracts the gathering of people that would then attract the restaurants and the retail and also maybe some corporate citizenship like our DACUs and co-serves. And so with this park project, this kind of fixes all of it.
It definitely helps. There's no question.
Right.
And you mentioned challenges earlier. I like to look at them as opportunities.
Sure.
People always ask us how we can get something done. You want to go to the moon? We can go to the moon.
Right.
It just costs money.
It is. Yeah. So we have to always seek solutions to these challenges. So the Commons at Agora Way, put very simply, is a gathering spot that we can do our events. We can bring people from outside of Corinth into Corinth. The Corinth community can enjoy the walking paths and the boardwalks and the park, and we'll have our movie nights out there and stuff like that. But as a result of increasing the foot traffic in that area, this is going to be very attractive to the developers that will be developing outside of that area.
Absolutely.
And the first of which is the development that's going in on the southwest corner of the of 35 and the access road. Realty Capital?
Yes.
What are some of the projects that Realty Capital has done?
So Realty Capital has done Lakeside at Flower Mound.
Mm-hmm.
They've also done some work in Keller.
Sure.
And Colleyville.
And Colleyville. So they were attracted to us because of the vision that staff and council had cast with this area. And so having amenities in Corinth on the likes of the Colleyvilles, the Kellers, and Lakeside at Flower Mound is a huge win for Corinth. We should be very proud as a city that we've had the opportunity to attract somebody like that. So back to the park. So how are we paying for this?
So yeah, the how is always an important question. How do you pay for it? With some of the financial tools that we're using is a tax increment financing district, TERS, and that will help in the long term pay for the streets and roads and infrastructure and the park itself. We're also going to be using the short-term motor vehicle tax.
Voters approved that last May.
Right. So that'll be helpful. Yeah. And so to get the project started, the city issued bonds to build the infrastructure and build the park. The overall goal is that the TERS will help pay for the project in the long term, so there won't be an impact on the general fund for the citizens of Corinth.
Sure. And because we had cast the vision and we had such support from the development community, it really prompted and allowed us the conversation with Denton County. And we were able to secure participation from Denton County at just under $30 million to help with this TERS area, the park of which is the Keystone Project. And we're the only city north of Louisville Lake that the county has participated in any projects like this.
Yeah, and that's a testament to the executive staff's efforts, as well as council's efforts in those communications with our partners with the Denton County.
Absolutely, but the bottom line is there is no effect to our general fund tax requirements to our city.
That's correct.
And our citizens. That is excellent news.
Right.
Excellent news. So let's talk about some of the cool features of the park. Through your presentation, there were a few things that really stood out to me. The first is that stage. So when we started, let's talk about Pumpkin Palooza. When we started Pumpkin Palooza, we wanted to put together something for the citizens. We wanted to be more or less free to our community so that they could come and enjoy the rides and those types of things. It got popular. Yeah. Pumpkin Palooza got really popular. So our first year, we were somewhere around 6,000 to 7,000 people in attendance. And then we had to take a couple of years. We had some rain and, of course, COVID. And we didn't have huge expectations for this last year's Pumpkin Palooza, but we were expecting at least 9. Do you happen to know how many people showed up?
It was somewhere between 15 and 18,000 people.
Yeah.
And that was a big event. Everybody came out in droves. It was well attended. There's no question. It
was well attended. And the people that were performing there on our behalf, the sponsors, the vendors, the development community thinks that was an excellent show of the kind of demand for gathering and those types of activities in Corinth. So when we put a stage in and a huge lawn to where we can bring out our blankets and our lawn chairs and let the kids run around, it's going to stay full.
Yeah. It's
going to stay full. Is there our local college, is there a music program there?
Yes, there is. Yes, we're going to try to partner with NCTC and work with them on bringing events to the stage, and that's going to be a fun task for our special events group.
So another event in Corinth that's been quite popular is our movie in the park, and so this obviously is going to be a great spot to be able to have the kids there, have them running around, bring your blankets, your lawn chairs.
And food trucks.
And you know, when we get a lot of people in one area like that, the obvious positive to the surrounding development community is people like to eat. While we're there, you know, we'll walk around and shop. It's going to be a great place. So you have also mentioned that there were a few green initiatives in this park, which council loves to hear. So let's talk about a couple of those. The first is rain harvesting.
Yes, rain harvesting. So we have a large roof structure over the stage, trying to collect that water and then put it into mirrored cisterns on either side of the building. So that's then going to be used in 2 different ways. One would be to send it to the toilets for flushing the toilets. And that would then go out to the sewer system. The rest would be utilized to irrigate the park. Obviously, we talked about drainage, and we were going to be detouring some of the drainage around the park so that we don't have the flooding that we know we currently have with the floodplain. And so we still need to provide water for those trees that are there. And so trying to capture that water from the sky and collect it and distribute it when it's needed is really helpful.
It's really important too for Corinth that we can limit the amount of water in these areas that we're pulling from the Upper Trinity. And so I thought this was an excellent idea. Do you think it will take care of 100% of the water needs for the park? And the toilets,
So we're crunching those numbers now.
Okay.
I don't know yet. So we're still in that design
But
stage.
we have a lot of smart people working on it.
We have some really smart people that are taking care of that staff, that item.
So another thing that means a lot to the folks here in Corinth is the trees. And so in a city that's growing, that has been, for the lack of a better word, kind of fighting the growth over the last probably 20 or 30 years, the growth is here. And people, landowners prior that said that they would never sell, all of a sudden now the dollar amounts are getting to the size that it's like, okay, I mean, this is like life-changing dollars. We want to sell. And so if Corinth doesn't stay ahead of those trends, this is how cities just kind of get what they get, right?
Right.
So casting a vision, working with the landowners on the things that the citizens would like to see here in Corinth, leads to loss of trees.
Sure.
Now, you were a big part of our tree mitigation plan, and that has been rewritten robustly, I feel.
It's still a work in progress.
Right.
It hasn't officially been taken to council, but we're working with it with developers as they're coming in. We're saying, hey, this is what we're trying to move towards, trying to create some opportunities, incentivize the saving of trees, and less about just paying the city money for trees, for removal of trees.
Right. Like we don't want a huge tree mitigation fund. We want the trees.
Right.
And we want to keep as many of them as we possibly can. So this project is an awesome opportunity for us to either keep a bunch of trees or plant new trees. And one of those challenges that we have to overcome is the trees a lot of times are planted close to sidewalks, and you've got a solution to that.
Yeah, so we're going to be using a product like Sylvia sells. That's a name brand, but something like that basically is like a milk crate underneath the ground that helps provide area for the roots to grow and for the water to infiltrate into the ground and for those trees to then suck up. And what that prevents is the roots from coming up and out of and pushing up on the sidewalks, so that we don't have that infrastructure damage. Another thing that you see with trees, you see this in large downtowns a lot of times, where they have like maybe an 8x8 tree well. Once that tree gets to a certain size, they have to cut it down. And the Sylvia cells will help promote that root growth so that they can be bigger before any of those issues arise.
So we'll be able to enjoy full mature trees that provide us shade in our park system for years.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
Way different than a lot of other parks in town. So when we try to describe this park to people, we're like, well, it'll be kind of like this. It'll be kind of like this. It's not going to be kind of like anything. Right.
No, we're not buying this one out of a catalog.
So this is
unique and specific to Corinth.
So you can't go, well, it'll be kind of like the park in South Lake. It'll be kind of like this over here. No, this is a totally from scratch. Will really set Corinth out on the map. And I know council was really concerned that it keeps its uniqueness. And one of the pieces is the boardwalk.
Right.
We want it to feel like nature. We like to be outside. It'd be nice to be able to walk around in the shade. Describe the boardwalk to us.
So the boardwalk is really bridging that gap between the east side and the west side of the park, and going through those native trees that are going to be saved through that area. It's most likely going to be a pier boardwalk. They'll set piers in the ground. And then the surface material would be like a Trex type decking. So long-term durability is extremely important. At the end of the day, we're looking for something that's going to be long-term durable. Yes, it might cost us a little bit more up front, but it's going to prevent us to having to have long-term maintenance costs. Something like a wood decking would be definitely something that
you got to stain it.
We got to stain it. We got to pressure wash it, clean it, and technically, wood actually tends to be slippery when it's wet. So, having some sort of composite material helps in the long run.
So I'll be able to jog in the rain.
Well, if that's the thing you like to do.
No, I don't. But I could if I wanted to.
There you go.
And so the other two pieces that I wanted to discuss while you were here, the first is the playground. And so typically where these are located is center of center. And it was important to us that that be unique and a statement piece. And so there's been some photos floating around. Is it going to look something like that, or we haven't even started that design process?
We have not seen, the city has not seen any exhibits from our design consultants yet. So, but we do know that we're not going to be buying this playground out of a catalog. It is going to be unique to Corinth. It's going to be unique to the area. And we hope to see something wonderful. It's all a matter of a cost at the end of the day.
Sure. And we are sensitive to that.
Yes.
We want super unique, but at an affordable price, right?
Right.
And then we've got an art piece
Right.
scheduled to be out there, which will be really cool. I'm sure that there's opportunities for corporations to donate. We have no idea what we're going to end up doing with the art piece, but we do know that that will be center stage for our annual tree lighting.
Absolutely. And I would imagine that the art piece can actually be something that the city can contract to have put in, and then maybe it's there for 2 years and it gets changed out. A lot of cities do that kind of product. And then most likely during the tree lighting, it might be removed for the month of December and then put back afterwards.
So all of this, if we walk out of City Hall and look straight down, all of this is going to be right in front of City Hall.
Yeah, it's going to be right there, which is great for me because I work at City Hall.
Yeah, it's so, of course, we'll be able to share parking. We can park at City Hall and walk across. What about the architecture? So Agora in Greek means a place of gathering and commerce, right? Is it going to retain some of the same architectural elements?
Yeah, so we're a lot of, if you look at Corinth City Hall, it has some of those Greek architectural elements already in it, and so we're trying to do a little bit of that mimicry with the stage and the columns that are there, but not trying to go too far into the Greek theme, and,
Sure.
and we're not building.
It's not Greek themed.
Yeah, it's not a Greek theme park, but it's we're going to have a little bit of touch on those architectural features.
So, George, we've talked a lot about the what, whys, and hows. I'd like to know when. So, we've been working on this for quite some time. We own the property. We have county participation. The TERS is in place. We have architects that have been working on this. We have the plans. When are we going to start seeing dirt move?
So we're hoping to bring council a guaranteed maximum price in April of next year, which is just around the corner if you really think about it, which is a very tight timeline for our engineers and architects to get those things done. With that, we may do some early release of construction, whether it's like early grading or other things like that before then. So we might see some dirt fly in maybe March timeframe. But really, we'll see most of that construction start in April. And we anticipate the project to be a 365-day construction timeframe. Now, what's interesting and difficult and challenging for all the contractors that are going to be working out there is you have burn construction that'll be doing the park itself. But we're going to have potentially a whole different contractor doing the streets and water and sewer and drainage outside the park limits, for North Corinth Street and Agora Way. And so they're going to be working together right on top of each other, and then there's a possibility of the mixed use development. If things move along in a fast pace for them, there might be an opportunity for them to be under construction at the same time. So we're going to be working on top of each other, trying to get this park built, and we have a hard deadline of June of 2023.
Okay, well, and we can go out there today and see that there's already action happening on that property.
That's right. We got goats.
Let's talk about goats. So from what I understand, the cost to go in with machines and clear all the thatch and the thicket out so that we can assess the trees, which trees are going to stay, which trees need to be moved, all that gross weeds, they've got to go.
Right.
Heavy equipment, $75,000. to get all that stuff moved out.
$75,000-$80,000.
And goats are hungry.
Goats are hungry. They don't take care of everything,
right?
But they take care of a good majority of it. And here we are in the winter months, so we're not seeing all the new growth and so forth. So they're not fighting that. And they're at a tune of just under $8,000 for them to clear out those 4 acres, which is really great.
So that's like a tenth.
It's a tenth, yeah. Now we'll have some other work to come in to clear out some of that privet, but it's really neat. The other thing that goats help provide is not having to bring in heavy machinery and damage those roots of those trees that we want to save. And so that's, you see these bobcats, they eat up cedar trees, whatever, they come in and grind up. And that would be a perfectly fine option, but they can potentially damage the roots of those trees that we want to save. And so, that's why there's a benefit to using goats.
So I can bring my kids out. I can show them the goats. We can look at the goats. Just don't interfere with the goats, and for crying out loud, don't feed them.
Don't feed them. Don't feed them. Absolutely.
If somebody feeds the goats, they will no longer eat the thicket, and then we will have to pay heavy machinery to tear stuff out. So please enjoy the goats. Just do not feed them or interfere. Those are working goats.
That's right.
And they are saving the city of Corinth a lot of money.
They are. They're doing a good job.
Good for them. And with goats, we're going to leave it here. Thank you for joining us. And as always, please leave a comment below the video, wherever you happen to see it. Let us know what you'd like to know more about. Upcoming is going to be our streets. We're going to talk about our fire accreditation and what that means for the citizens of Corinth. And we're going to talk about dog parks with Piper Davidson.